Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. Today it's our pleasure to resume our seminar in Islamic philosophy, and it's our pleasure to welcome Professor Basil AlTaie, who will be talking about Islam and natural philosophy. Yeah. Thank you, Professor Tai. Yeah, you can start.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome all for this talk. In this talk, I will try to present from a modern perspective the views of Islamic Kalam, which are related directly to the natural philosophy questions. This is called Daqiq al-Kalam. But before that, I have to glimpse on important contributions of Muslims in the methodology of dealing with science. Whenever we open a book of science in English, we find it citing Plato and Aristotle and the Greek philosophers. They always start from these names, jumping directly to the 17th and 18th century European scientists. We rarely find mention of the contribution of Muslims to modern science, even though European Renaissance stood on the shoulder of Muslims. The golden era of Islam, science in Islam, that's the 8th century to 12th century, marked an important stage in the development of a human intellect. It has witnessed great scientific and cultural achievements which greatly contributed to the progress of the world. This stage was much needed for transforming the world from the primary level of thought to a new, more advanced stage of philosophical and scientific competence. For this purpose, you can see George Sarton, the well-known historian and philosopher of science, and you can see also the work of Siegfried Honga, the German author, and George Saliba. George Saliba wrote a beautiful book about the contribution of Islamic science to the European Renaissance. How the Islamic Renaissance appeared in the first place. Initially, those achievements were motivated, as far as I can see myself, motivated by the Quran. The Quran encouraged people to learn and seek knowledge from all available sources. And it is customary said, although some people think it is an narration of Prophet Muhammad, but it is not. It's customary said that seek knowledge even if it is in China. And here China is meant to mean a very far country. The word knowledge, ilm, or in one way, science, has been repeated in the Quran for more than 80 times. More than 80 times. The Quran encourages Muslims to travel and investigate the origin of life, to see how creation all started. As we read in verse 29 of chapter 20 of the it's verse 20 chapter 29 of the Quran, say, travel in the land and see how creation started. So reciting verses of the Quran 5 times during the salah, during the prayer, provoke a Muslim to contemplate about the universe and the magnificent creation of the divine. This is indeed the first step to get involved in an intimate relationship with the universe, a relationship that, on the one hand, is part of the worship, And on the other hand, is a zeal for discovery and learning. The Islamic approach to knowledge, Muslims believe, always believe that, or remember that knowledge is incomplete. The puzzle is always there, and the rationale of a human should be supported by some guidance. Yeah, and from the Creator to enable him address the correct approach and waste no time on questions that goes beyond capacity of his faculty. This is the first lesson Muslims read in the first verse, as Muslims read in the first verse revealed in the Quran, saying, read of your Lord who created man from a clot, read, and your Lord most exalted, who taught by pen, taught human that knew not. I mean, just think of this verse. Talking who? Talking to Arabs in the Bedouins and Bedouins in the desert. They have no pen. Very rarely you find somebody who can read and write at that time, the time of the Prophet Muhammad. And the Quran telling me, read in the name of God, and who taught human by pen. Now let us have a glance on the important contributions. By the way, I'm not going to talk about contributions of science and technology, Islamic science and technology, but I found it's necessary to give a glance on this. Muslim introduced experimentation for the verification of hypotheses and inventing lots of instrumentation for that purpose. This was quite clear during the 8th to 12th century. Al-Khwarizmi, who died 850, invented algebraic algorithms, which we now use in every respect, including the AI. Without algorithms, no AI. That's why I called for naming artificial intelligence. I called for naming it algorithmic intelligence. In Arabic, الذكاء الخوارزمي, algorithmic intelligence instead of artificial intelligence. But not, I mean, needs a lot of people who convince with this. Al-Hasan ibn al-Haytham, who died in 1040, established the modern scientific inquiry and methodology to investigate natural phenomena. In an introduction to his book, Kitab al-Manazir, the book of optics, he explains the scientific methodology, observation, and then building a hypothesis, and then testing the hypothesis, and as if he is talking to us in the 21st century. Ibn al-Haytham also set the basis of geometrical optics, and the French physicist Alain Aspect considered him the father of modern optics. This comment of Alan Aspect was said during a talk he gave in the Hebrew University. Yeah, criticizing the planetary models of the Greek, which were based on Ptolemaic models, and developing astronomical observation techniques. For example, and even they developed models based on certain ideas like Nasir al-Din al-Tusi, for example. who died 1274, and Ibn al-Shatir al-Dimashqi of Damascus. Ibn al-Shatir of Damascus also contributed a lot to the astronomy and observations and proposing a theory. Yes, I admit they didn't leave the Ptolemaic geocentric model, and that was the shortcoming in their presentations, but let alone the mathematical details of the planetary system proposed by Ibn Shatter were copied by Copernicus. This is shown in many details, in very details, by George Saliba in his book Islamic Science Contribution to European Renaissance, which I showed in the first slide. Now I go to Kalam and Mutakallimun. Kalam and Mutakallimun is a different way of dealing with. It deals with the philosophy of the physical law, etc. Kalam in Arabic means speech or a dialogue or a corpus. All this comes in under the name Kalam. During the 8th century, a group of thinkers were formed in Basra in Iraq, by the way, in modern Iraq now. These were called Mu'tazila. Their intellectual work was called Kalam, and their aim was to set the Islamic creed on rational basis and defend it accordingly through rational, arguments. Obviously, this group were formed when they, after, as you see from the date of their, they were facing new nations coming to confront them with the questions about Islamic creed, non-Muslims. So they cannot convince them using the Quran and the narration of the Prophet. They had to use rational approach, pure rational approach. And the practitioners of Kalams, who were called Mutakallimun, went into studying natural philosophy and tried to explain their theological belief, their creed through natural philosophical terms. Yes. Theological matters were called Jalil al-Kalam, the coarse Kalam, where it considers the divine attributes, the afterlife, and the fate of the sins, punishment and reward in afterlife, etc. All these theological matter were under Jalil al-Kalam. Topics of natural philosophy, like space, time, matter, and motion, and all what we now call physics, were considered under the title Daqiq al-Kalam, the fine Kalam. Yeah. And Mu'tazili worked for quite a long time, by the way, and they were supported by the Caliphate, Al-Ma'mun. Al-Ma'mun is the Caliph, Abbasid Caliph, who came after his father, Harun al-Rashid. And at that time, the Islamic nation were quite large, because it covers Persia and covers India, part of India, and even China, part of China. It covers at that time all the Islamic known most of the non-Islamic world at this time. Yes, another two groups of Mutakallimun after Mu'tazilis were formed. By the way, Mu'tazilis followed the rational approach, but we should not also forget that were too rational, perhaps. And for this reason, they had a confrontation with the what they call Rijal al-Hadith, the scholars of the prophetic narrations. Mu'tazilis were concentrating their efforts on the Quran. They accept and acknowledge Hadith, of course, but it is only a secondary source for them. And that is why they had some confrontation with Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who was main muhaddith at that time, and they had problems uh, on questions like whether the Quran is created or whether it is eternal. So Rijal al-Hadith said the Quran is eternal, it's the word of God, and it is eternal. While Mu'tazili said, no, it's not eternal. The Quran contains verses which talks about events taking place at the time of the Prophet Muhammad. So it cannot be eternal. It is muhdathun. And in the Quran, there are verses which points that the Quran is not eternal, at least. But this problem culminated in a big confrontation between the Mu'tazila and the theologians, you can say, pure theologians, mainly the Hanbali. Yes. I mean, Shafi'i also was affected, but Shafi'i left the arena and went to to Egypt, perhaps escaping to Egypt. Generally, I can say that Mutakallimin, as I go back to their to their tradition, their books, I find that Mutakallimun almost agreed on most problems and questions of Daqiq al-Kalam, natural philosophy, but widely disagreed on Jalil al-Kalam, on theological questions. And that's why I followed, in my endeavor to study Kalam, I found that the old Jalil al-Kalam may not be of much use nowadays. My references, well, somebody may ask, what are your references? Where do you start? I actually concentrate my studies and my acknowledgement of Kalam or Daqiq al-Kalam on the early Mutakallim, not the late Mutakallim. Early Mutakallimun include the Mu'tazila and Ash'ari, of course, and the Maturidi. But I am concentrating on my efforts on Mu'tazila, who was there until late time, but then they were banned at the time of the Caliph Al-Qadir Billah. I will talk about this later. It's important to say that edited, many of their edited manuscripts, original manuscripts, are now available in print, mostly in Arabic. يعني for example مقالات الإسلاميين واختلاف المصلين for الأشعري himself, Al-Hasan, Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari, the founder of Ash'arism, is there. And the books of Ash'ari, and books of Juwayni, books of Baqillani, I mean, All these are available and edited in edited form now. But the early Mu'tazilis, books of early Mu'tazilis, like Ibrahim Nadam, Wasil ibn Atta, or other, not available. We can find the fragmentations with Al-Jahad, for example. Al-Jahad was a Mu'tazili, as I will show later. Yeah. Anyway, for modern references, you can go to Shlomo Pin's Studies in Islamic Atomism, with this title. This title is the English translation of his book. His book was published in 1936 in German, but this translation of the Hebrew University Studies in Islamic, very recent translation. Also, we have Harry Wolfson, The Philosophy of the Kalam. Is a big book, more than 800 pages. The Philosophy of the Kalam, most of it is about Daqiq al-Kalam, natural philosophy. Published by Harvard University Press, 1976. And we have Nur al-Dhannani, the the physical theory of Basriyan Mu'tazilis. It is a PhD thesis, actually, which was put in a form of a book published by Brill in 1992. Recently, we had also the Frank Griffel book, Al-Ghazali Philosophical Theology. It's a very good presentation of Ghazali on many problems but recently, actually, I have already published also about Al-Ghazali. I published a book, The Natural Philosophy of Imam Al-Ghazali. This was published in Malaysia. And it is mainly uh, it's mainly quotation of Al-Ghazali with analysis. I mean, it's full of quotations from Al-Ghazali books, mainly Tahafut al-Falasifa. It is also containing a lot of analysis on the problems of Daqiq al-Kalam, or related to physics. All related to physics. All what is in this book, nothing theology from Al-Ghazali, but it's the area of Daqiq al-Kalam. Methodology and applications. According to William Craig, the American philosopher, uh, he says the practitioner of Kalam, that is the Mutakallim, called in Arabic, Mutakallim, practitioner of it, takes the truth of Islam as his starting point. This is very important. William Craig has devised, as perhaps some of you know, something called the Kalam Cosmological Argument, and he published a book in 1979 in which he is borrowing actually argument of Al-Ghazali and employing it to be a proof of God, of the existence of God. But he says he has really very good assessment of the Mutakallimun and their methodology, and I like it really. And this is actually this quotation from him. The practitioner of Kalam, the Mutakallim, takes the truth of Islam as his starting point. So as I read the books of early books of Mutakallimun, the early Mutakallimun, I found that they start from the Quran through mind to understand the world. That's their methodology. While the philosophers start from the world in the opposite direction. Start from the world through mind to build their metaphysics. That is why philosophers may reach to or conclude that there are many gods, because they always scale nature on the physics, on the metaphysics. So not to be illuded, with this, because if you do that, then you will be confused with the metaphysical questions, how it gets to be construed from the physical nature. In his book, the Guide to the Perplexed, the Jewish rabbi Maimonides, who died in 1204 in Cordoba, Spain, find that the Mutakallimun have set 12 propositions for their system of thought, which were taken as basis to construct their worldview. Those 12 principles, I find, can be reduced to no, 5 principles, actually, if set in a modern context and collected, because some of the Maimonides principles, stated principles, are actually repetition, contain some repetition. So I reclassified. I went through during the last 35 years. I went through all the Kalam original books on natural philosophy, and I found that I could re-express it in a modern perspective uh, in 5 basic principles. These are principles of Daqiq al-Kalam. Number one, temporality, which says that everything has a beginning to exist. That is to say, muhdath. Everything in the world has a began to exist. And William Craig, as I said in his Kalam Cosmological Argument in 1979, have endorsed that and explained that and went to, the second principle is atomism. Here I am briefly, actually, very briefly presenting these principles, because each principle will need 2 hours to go in details. Atomism. Things are finitely divisible. The ultimate is an indivisible part. This is formed out of an abstract entity called the essence. In Arabic, jawhar. But unfortunately, the Arabic jawhar, or the essence, was interpreted by Orientalists as substance. And we have a transient, the arad. The arad is something that cannot stay two successive moments of time. And this now I call transient, but Orientalists has called it accident. So in Kalam atomism, we have, this is very important, we have the jawhar, the essence, and the arad. The jawhar is the essence, the arad is a transient property that a jawhar would acquire, the essence will acquire. And since the essence cannot stay without arad, so it is entangled actually. The jawhar is entangled with the arad. The arad is the property, and without property, a jawhar on its own cannot be found. Again, the arad is the attribute, property, whatever, quality, etc. The essence cannot be realized without transient, as I said. And this has been explained very well by both by Shlomo Pins and Harry Wolfson. They explain this in their book properly. I mean. Now, the third principle of the Mutakallimun is the continued recreation. In this says they say that the transient cannot stay two successive moments. The arad cannot stay two successive moments. And this means that since the arad is entangled, or the jawar is the essence, is entangled with the arad always, Therefore, if the arad is changing, therefore, it means that the essence is also changing. But by assumption, the essence is fixed. The arad is changing. So it means that recreation covers actually both. But the trigger for the recreation is the Jawa, the Arab, which is ever changing. Yeah. This leads actually to a fourth principle. If you analyze the recreation hypothesis, you find that it will immediately, uh, you will find it leads to many implications. The fourth principle is contingency and indeterminism. All events in nature are supposed to be contingent and indeterministic, and this affects their position on causality, as we know. Causality is seen, according to the Mutakallimun, as correlation. No quality in the world has efficacy to effect a result, cannot, because it has no will and no power. Those properties only are marking correlations between the cause and the effect, rather than fundamentally related, both of them. And their entanglement, yes, the cause and effect are entangled, naturally entangled, somehow, in all respects. But then their entanglement doesn't mean that the cause is the actual reason for the event to happen. This entanglement is sort of correlation. On space-time, and this is the fifth principle, Mutakallimun consider space and time as relative, as not absolute, and this was explained very well by Ibn Hazm, by the way, although he's not Mutakallim, is not Mu'tazili or Ash'ari anyway, but he is somehow Ash'ari, he's influenced by Ash'ari in one or another way, holding similar ideas, not directly influenced necessarily. And but space and time, according to them, is also atomic. The smallest unit of time is called the now, is the instant now, separating past from the future. And also the space is considered discrete by the Mutakallim. Incidentally, some of the Mu'tazilis, like as we will mention later, the Mu'tazilis like Al-Nadham consider time as continuous, acknowledging space is discrete. But that caused a problem for him because he couldn't then explain motion, except by saying that motion on the very microscopic level, happens with jumps. And this, as we will find later, was appreciated by Max Yemer, the philosopher and historian of science, saying that Ibrahim al-Nizam was perhaps the forerunner of quantum jump. Anyway, let's go back to the prominent, here we will talk about motion, yes. Ibrahim al-Nizam, as I said, one of the Mu'tazilis, insisted that space could be discrete, okay, but time has to be continuous. And accordingly, he proposed to explain motion, he proposed the concept of tafra, jump. Max Yemer, a German philosopher of science, and he's also worked at the Hebrew University, considered Nizam as forerunner of quantum jump, forerunner of Bohr's conception of quantum jump. This is a sentence from his book, The Philosophy of Quantum Mechanics, page 259. I mean, if I would have said this, people would say that Basil AlTaie is just exaggerating, or jumping to conclusions, to hasty conclusions, as they sometimes put it, in respect of the works of Kalam or Mutakallimun. But here is another non-Muslim source. On a free fall, by the way, Al-Jubbai, who died 915, and this is related to motion also, told that a freely falling body in vacuum will fall with increasing speed, which is independent of its weight, of its mass or weight. He said, if a feather, and this is a quote, if a feather and a stone are released and left freely falling, then they will reach the ground at the same instant. And this was mentioned by Ibn Matawayh al-Najrani in his book Al-Tadhkirah, page 248. Yeah. Obviously, Al-Jubba'i was actually before Matawayh, long before Matawayh, but also Matawayh was a student of Al-Qadi Abd-Jabbar, and he wrote a very extensive monograph about Daqiq al-Kalam, or rather about Al-Jawhar and Al-Arad, Al-Tadhkirah في أحوال الجواهر والأعراض. It's a very good book. And he, as I said, Ibn Mataway died, I think, 1045. Yes. Yes, 1045. About 15 years after his mentor, Al-Qadi Abd-Jabbar. And what Al-Jubbai said is 600 years before Galileo Galilei. By the way, one may say, well, we may not have an explanation. We don't have explanation why Al-Jubbai said that. No, we have now explanation. If you go to Abu al-Barakat al-Baghdadi, who died 200 years after after after, yeah, he died 200 years after Al-Jubai. Abu al-Barakat al-Baghdadi explains in details in his book Al-Mu'tabar fi al-Hikmah uh, why Al-Jubai said that, using their assumption that there is particles and vacuum. We have particles and vacuum, and this vacuum, khala, al-khala, vacuum. According to Al-Mu'tabar fil Hikmah, he gives some kind of a scenario for the motion of a freely falling body, explaining his the what Al-Jubai said, explaining the free fall, being independent of the weight of the particle. Now, this free fall has been checked, I mean, exactly as Al-Jubai said. By the way, Al-Jubai said a stone and a feather. I think Galileo gave another example, not a feather, I don't know. But they have done it exactly in with NASA in a big laboratory where we can see it now. This is a ball, heavy ball, and a feather. Have been set free in a vacuum chamber, in a big vacuum chamber, and you can see, yeah, same moment, incredible. Uh, and this was part of it is an experiment done by NASA in 2015. Yeah. Now, if we go to the question about the celestial bodies and astronomy, so Mutakallimun had also their own ideas about that. Aristotle and most of the Greek philosophers believed that the sun is eternal. In fact, all celestial bodies, they thought it is eternal. Al-Ghazali, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, who died 1111, discussed the fate of the sun in his famous book, Incoherence of the Philosophers, and concluded that the sun could be withering very slowly, causing its mass to be diminishing. Here, he actually was perhaps influenced by the Quran also, as other Mutakallimun. The early Mutakallimun were much influenced by the Quran. So some old books claim that their atomism came from the verse وَأَحْصَى كُلَّ شَيْءٍ عَدَدًا in the Quran, which says God counted everything in the world, or accounted for everything in numbers. For example, their recreation came under the influence, the recreation hypothesis came under the influence of Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. God is the sustainer of the universe. So how they thought, how would sustain the universe every moment, this whole universe, unless there is something quickly changing every moment. And they thought it is the arad of the in the atom. The atom is essence. It's different from the Greek atom. It's essence plus arad, essence plus transient, and the transient always changing. By the way, the Quran is clear about it. Sun will collapse in the verse 1 and 2 in Surah 81, Takwir. Contrary to what philosophers believed, Al-Ghazali also discussed the question whether the universe could have been created larger or smaller than it is. He concluded that there is no reason to object such possibility, and this allows, I find, in the modern perspective, it allows for the expansion and contraction of the universe. While Greek philosophers insisted that the universe cannot change in size. If it changes, as explained by Ibn Rushd, Ibn Rushd defended the Greek position on this question of the expansion of the universe or collapse of the universe, or having a universe smaller or larger to be more accurate. He defended the Greek position or the Galen position, saying universe cannot be larger, cannot be smaller. If it would have to be, then a whole universe will change. Yeah. But Al-Ghazali before, obviously, he was before Ibn Rushd. Ibn Rushd, Averroes. I mean, Averroes came 70 years or more after Al-Ghazali. Yeah, also, it's worth mentioning that the Mutakallimun rejected the hypothesis of four basic elements, the Greek assumption that the whole universe is composed of basic elements, four, and fire, air, and etc. And refuted astrology also, and this we find in the book of Baqillani. Al-Baqillani is one of the early Ash'arites, by the way, and in his book تمهيد الأوائل تلخيص الدلائل, he clearly rejects and discusses and refutes the claim that celestial objects affect astrologically life on Earth. Al-Ghazali also talked about space and time in his book, by the way. Very beautiful discussion of the before and after. And he concluded that the before and after are same as above and below. Same, so it's relative. And insisted that time should be treated on equal footing with space. And this he explicitly mentioned this by saying that space and time are to be treated on equal footing. He also asserted that the universe was not created in time, but with time. That's why there is no time before the creation of the universe. Time was created with the universe, not that the universe created in existing time. And that also he mentioned that there is no outside for the universe. I mean, these ideas, this vision agrees exactly with relativity theory, with general relativity. In general relativity, I studied my general relativity a long time ago and published several papers on that, and we learned that the universe has no outside, and if we talk about an outside, then it is the surface of the outside. That's the outside. That's why I fully convinced that these ideas are really expressing relativistic conceptually conceptually a relativistic understanding of space and time. Al-Ghazali also pointed to the question of symmetry, for example. I mean, uh, about when he was discussing actually the breaking symmetry, how the universe started all together. If space and time, Mr. Al-Ghazali is to be, I mean, symmetric, etc., and form one accountable reason, I mean, or whatever existence, how would this universe be created in the first place, in the very first moment? For the universe to come into being, something has to change in the symmetry. And here Al-Ghazali also present his thought, assuming that actually he brought it as an argument against saying that the universe created itself. He says there must be a symmetry breaking factor. And he gives the example of a man or a person sitting, and in front of him there are two cups of water, and he want to drink one of them. Which one he would choose? And then he discusses all this. By the way, Steven Weinberg discusses the very same physical question concerning the symmetry breaking, but he brings the example of a donkey. In front of him, there is two heaps of straw. Which one the donkey will eat? I have a photo, by a picture of that question. Yes, in. I should have put it actually. It's very beautiful how they discuss it. I mean, two different eras, two different times, but you see, it's a great value of a great value. I mean, uh, anyway, the by the way, the I find myself as a physicist that from philosophical point of view, the Al-Ghazali example of the water in front of two cups of water in front of a person, and he has to choose between and break the symmetry of left and right, uh, is more accurate, because here we need the will uh, to decide on that. Al-Ghazali pointed out that there must be a factor, as I said, which caused the breaking of the symmetry of the universe, of space-time, for universe to come into being if it's created out of vacuum ex nihilo. And this is incoherence of also incoherence of the philosophy, of philosophers, sorry, not philosophy. He was not attacking philosophy, he was actually showing the incoherence of the philosophers themselves in deducing results. Al-Ghazali believed in an indeterministic universe, denying causal determinism while admitting the existence of causal relationships. And this is one of the big mistakes that Western authors sometimes claim that Al-Ghazali was, or even all Muslim, deny causality. Muslims do not deny causality. Ghazali do not deny causality. He designs causal determinism, that all events are happening because of the effect of the cause. The cause is causing what happens in the event, deterministically. So now we know quantum mechanics tells us that there is no causal determinism anyway. Muslims also believe that the universe is fine-tuned for the existence of humans. Everything in the universe is for the service of the human. إِنَّا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَاهُ بِقَدَرٍ. Everything in the universe has been created with exact quality and quantity. Now, if we have to consider the Kalam or put these ideas in of Kalam, of Daqiq al-Kalam, in a modern perspective, uh, we find that it can offer a conceptual ideas for resolving some fundamental problems, perhaps in physics. We may be able to utilize such concepts even. For example, showing the origin of the wave-particle duality by employing the proposal of recreation and using the Aharonov approach, presenting this will explain how single particles under continuous recreation can be represented as a time-dependent wave function. Anyway, the recreation proposal can accommodate quantum time naturally, since the recreation time is already discrete. As I said, Mutakallimun has presented their ideas in a philosophical framework, and but you can see some of the questions or some of the assumptions, let us say, like recreation, will immediately lead you to indeterminism and explain indeterminism, or that there must be indeterminism in the world. That's why Muslims believe in indeterminism. And that's why Muslim also says, whenever you say, see you tomorrow, you see, inshallah. What's inshallah? God willing. Why is that? Because embedded in the Muslim or Islamic understanding, no event could take place in the universe unless God willing. And where is that? This come from their background, of understanding the world, implicit, embedded in their background. Inshallah, every time, inshallah. Yeah, it is. It is, inshallah. True. Whether, if you don't believe in God, you can say, if nature allows, or nature willing, but indeterministic. You have to admit that the world is indeterministic, notwithstanding all the other theories. But this is the fact, what we find in experiments. Despite there exist some theories which could, hidden variable theories, etc., can propose that the universe is deterministic. But what I see in experiment is indeterministic. Recently, some questions were raised. Especially this group of audience here, I would be interested to know that can AI provide a human level intelligence? The analysis is addressed from Quran perspective. I mean, could be addressed with lots of discussions on that. The concept of tafra of al-nadam and the concept of mu'tazilis about motion, etc., and the quantum time can be arranged in a multidisciplinary sort of amalgamation where it could explain many things. Natural language processing scheme may find novel suggestions in this respect, etc. of Daqiq. So Daqiq al-Kalam is very rich, and it can explain many things which we now need, perhaps. and it can express, beside expressing the philosophy of nature from Islamic understanding point of view. However, it can be used also by non-Muslims. Also, nothing to do with it. He can forget about the background why this has been, these assumptions came from. He can forget about that and take those assumptions, take those principles, and work out your problems or explanations or whatever analysis, and you find. This does not mean that all what Mutakallimun has said is true, especially I mean even in Daqiq al-Kalam. Most of their Jalil al-Kalam is of no use, as I say. Again repeat, but their Daqiq al-Kalam is most of Daqiq al-Kalam has a scientific value, current scientific value. Thank you for listening, and now I am ready to accept your or listen to your questions or comments, or the moderator will take care of that.
Yeah, it's klar. So I already see a question. Rama, do you want to unmute and ask directly?
Pardon?
There is someone in the chat. Rama, do you want to unmute?
And Moot, I am
No, no,
sorry.
no, 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 no. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to someone who has a question for you.
Yes, why not? Should I look at the chat? Perhaps he has
No, no,
written.
no. Again, I'm not talking to you, Dr. Basil. I'm talking to someone who wants to ask you a question.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's understood.
Yeah, I don't know, but she or he doesn't want to ask. Yeah, anyway, so the question is, does quantum form have relation to Kalam recreation principle?
Yes, exactly. And I have done very primitive sort of, I try from time to time on my own, in my own, scribbling, but I found it strongly suggests that quantum form is a sort of originating rather from recreation, but I need to study more in order to put it in a paper or a note or something like that. Uh,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, any other questions? Okay, another question. Does Arad and Jawhar have relation to quantum field theory?
no, this is a different approach. It is a discrete quantum field theory. Once you say field, then you assume continuity. The problem, with matching the philosophy of the Daqiq al-Kalam and quantum field theory is on the question of continuity and discreteness. Actually, recreation principle, and this lately I found, that under recreation, there is always a sort of connection. So the recreation, although it's taking discreetly, but it seems that if a mathematician would work it out like you, Boumediene, would consider actually the connection through the continuous derivative, whether it is first derivative or second derivative, I'm not sure. But usually in linear physics, we take linear system, we take continuity being expressed by first derivative. But perhaps it is not limited to the first derivative. It could be second derivative also. I mean, the continuity does not is not fulfilled by the first derivative, but with the second derivative, and that means it is within the nonlinear systems. Yeah.
Good. Any other questions or comments?
There is something on chat. I wonder if you have read it or not. I mean,
Yeah, I'm reading actually the question on the chat. Yeah.
hmm.
So these are the question I was reading are on the chat.
Assalamu alaikum. Can I ask
Yeah,
my question?
yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
Okay, good. You can hear me. Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful talk. The question, what are your thoughts on does Islam, I should say that I'm a PhD student at the University of Waterloo, and I study philosophy of science in particular, scientific explanation. And I find myself sometimes trying to figure out what the Islamic position is on realism or anti-realism. Is it idealistic? You talked about a methodology before, and you
Yes.
said that the Mutakallimun, we start with the revelation of the Quran, it goes through the mind, and then we apply it to the world, right? So that there's this direction from the Quran to the world, and it goes through the mind. So it reminds me a little bit of a kind of idealism that is there, but there's also this implication that it's the that we approach the world realistically, that there is a realism. Do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share about that?
Yeah, well, basically, Islam is taslim. Islam is submission. A Muslim would say, I start from the Quran, no matter whether it is expressing realistic or non-realistic. I submit to the Quran because it is the word of God. That's what a Muslim would believe. And there could be obviously idealism in that. However, this is not like the natural sort of idealism, because whenever we idealize any problem in nature, we actually are approximating the picture.
Yes.
Even our laws of physics are only approximate of our. That's why in my book, I've discussed this actually in under the chapter. I have the God nature and the cause. First chapter is laws of physics and laws of nature.
Mhm.
In the West, by the way, you don't find such a differentiation. Laws of physics are laws of nature, and laws of nature are laws of physics. But this is not the fact, because laws of nature are the phenomena as it happens. This is nature. Yes.
Yeah.
While laws of physics are our own construct. Laws of nature are fixed. Fire burns cotton. Why? Full stop. I don't know.
Mhm.
This is a law of nature. While laws of physics is my explanation why fire burns cotton. So I sometimes may bring or older people brought the theory of phlogiston, assuming that there is a fluid within the matter which can ignite under when fire comes near the cotton or
Yeah.
wood or whatever. It's called the phlogiston. It's
Yes.
a sort of fluid. But this proved to be wrong.
Mhm.
Later, thermodynamics, etc., and quantum mechanics showed that ignition or setting fire on material is caused by dissociation of the molecules, which is different, because upon having the molecule in a bound state, they contain energy, and when they dissociate, energy is released, completely different from phlogiston. This is a law of physics. But the law of nature is just what you see in the
Mhm.
phenomena, full stop. So, where comes the realism and idealism? And, you know, uh, one has to analyze these examples and see
Mhm.
how Muslims look at it. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. Can I ask a follow-up? Is that okay?
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. So a quick one then. Is the expectation then, as believers, as creations of Allah, is our expectation to be able to grasp the laws of nature, or is the best that we can do just create laws of physics?
Yeah, we can just create laws of physics, actually. The actual laws of nature behind, I mean, the why why it is designed like that, why the universe is designed, we don't know, actually. We don't know, and we will never know. We only know how can we explain. That's why, for example, in a multiverse, we can invent universes with different laws of physics.
Mhm.
But whether this is real or not, we don't know, and we will never know. We will never know that such universes exist or do not exist. And this is the main loophole, against the multiverse theory. Uh, we don't know, simply as
Mm,
that, and we will never know. Here is the calamity.
mm.
We never know.
No. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Rama, do you still want to do you want to ask, unmute and ask, or do you want me to read? Yeah, okay, Rama again. He or she is asking, Imam Ghazali denies causal determinism, but
Yeah.
does he believe something like water can relationally be the cause for burning?
Yes. He he mentioned that in what is called the second theory of Al-Ghazali about causality. If you go on deep studies about Al-Ghazali causality, you will say it's in this book also. It's presented rather than I'm not inventing things. I'm only citing authors. Uh, if you go into the analysis, you will find that in what they call the second theory of causality of Al-Ghazali, he admitted clearly, in a clear expression, saying that we accept that there is some kind of a nature in a piece of cotton, that makes it ready to get ignited or burn when fire approaches it. Some authors and analysts of philosophical analysts consider this admitting the existing nature. Oh, yes, it does. Mutakallimun do not deny the existing. There are some qualities. But by the way, here quality nature is qualities, not something that can act deterministically.
Yeah, I think
And
the question that he or she is asking is not about fire burning, it's about water burning.
yeah, water burning.
Yeah. So are
If
you?
it dissociates into hydrogen and oxygen, then it will burn. Otherwise, without dissociation, it will not burn. It
Mm,
has to change its own composition. Water could burn, yeah, of course,
mm.
if it dissociate. So if you have very high temperature, yeah, certainly. But what is burning is not water. It is the components which
Mm.
were in the water, hydrogen and oxygen. And that's how it will form water again.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know if Rama is happy, but anyway, Danish, do you want to unmute and ask directly the question? Yeah, you have two questions, yeah?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Assalamualaikum.
Yeah, Walaikum salam. Yeah, we can hear you, yes.
Yeah, thank you for the talk. Sorry, I joined a bit late because I missed the time, but I have read your book God, nature, and the cause. So my question is, the recreation, can we empirically detect it? And also, how does recreation can explain miracles, and how does it does not deny causality?
Yeah,
And
well, yeah. Detecting recreation now is very difficult. Until now, experimentally, we cannot detect recreation. I wonder if in very low energy systems, because I have reformulated the idea. I have actually exploited the idea or the assumption of recreation by assuming that the recreation rate is proportional to the rest energy of
mm,
a particle. And in this case, this means that an electron, is recreated 10 to the power 29, 10 to the power 20 times a second, 10 to the power 20 times a second. Therefore, I need a resolution of 10 to the power minus 20 second of measurement, under measurement, so that I can see the recreation of the electron. Nowadays, we have 10 to the power 17 or 18, 10 to the power minus 17 or 18 a second in labs. But I think I am confident that within 10 years' time, we will be able to measure 10 to the power minus 20 or 21 second in that case, such a resolution will allow us to see what is happening. The other simpler one is 10 to the power minus 19 or so second. When we approach that, we may trace the neutrino, by the way, because one of the suggestions which I find on my table is that the three flavors of the neutrino are actually a result of recreation. Could be, could be, I say, it's not actually. I should not stress that. Could be, or maybe, a sort of recreation where you have the same neutrino changing and becoming mu neutrino, electron neutrino, and tau neutrino, and so on. I mean, there are three flavors: electron neutrino and muon neutrino and tau neutrino. Because neutrino is very low energy compared to the electrons, I mean, a few MeVs, few EVs even. Therefore, the rate of recreation is lower because the rate of recreation is E energy divided by Planck constant for any system. And according to my assumption, this is not Kalam assumption. I mean, I am trying to exploit or use it in a modern perspective. In that case, we can measure yes, we can see recreation. Yes. I
okay.
hope I answered your question, or do you have?
Yeah, thank you, thank you. My second question is, because you differentiate law of nature, sorry, the law of nature and law of physics is different. You just described earlier. So can we discover law of physics through revelation, or law of physics is just mainly constructed from our mind?
Laws of physics are from our mind, but they are approaching the actual designation of the law of nature. It's approximations. What we see is approximations of the real thing. The real thing, as I said in a previous, a few minutes ago, the real thing may not be known at all by us, these creatures, but it may get to be known in some cases and some aspects. In some cases and some aspects, it might get to be known as a law of, as a law of, I mean, as a description, I mean, advancement of quantum theory, advancement of relativity theory, advancement of physics in general is approaching us, is make us approach the reality. That's why Paul Davies was saying laws of physics are in the mind of God, are expressing the mind of God. Yeah, partly he was right when he mean by laws of physics, laws of nature. You know, the reason perhaps you have noticed since you read the book, in this book I gave an example. Why should we have differentiating between laws of physics and laws of nature? Because Paul Davies himself, when he says, given the laws of physics, the universe can create itself without the need for the creator. Same has been repeated by Stephen Hawking and by Lawrence Krauss in his book A Universe from Nothing. And there I found that they were confusing law of nature with laws of physics. Given laws of nature is something different from given the laws of physics. Uh, Given the laws of physics, universe cannot create unless you have laws of nature. Why? I'll give you an example. My PhD is about the creation of the universe, and I found that unless you have gravity, true, as Stephen Hawking said, unless you have gravity, you can't have creation out of a vacuum. Quantum fluctuations in the vacuum exist. They may need no creator. Yes, because vacuum is nothing. Nothing needs no creator. But gravity is necessary for converting quantum vacuum into real particles. Where does gravity comes from? I posed this question in an email to Lawrence Krauss. Obviously, after he published his book, I sent him an email and expressed myself, Basil AlTaie, physics professor, etc., citing my papers, early paper in 1978 about the very early stages of the universe through quantum field theory. He was really pleased that I'm, introducing myself to him. But he said, well, forgive me, I rely on Wellinkin works or papers in 1982-83, where some quantum fluctuation in gravity may happen to produce a gravitational field or a curvature by which it will be sufficient energy, sufficient force to convert the vacuum into real particles. Then I answered him, but I'm sorry, the Wellinkin proposal needs a full-fledged quantum gravity in order to accept that. Otherwise, it is mere speculations what he's talking about. I mean, this is could have happened or could, but we need a full theory of quantum gravity. Only then we can talk about what you are proposing here, that gravity was being created as a sort of quantum fluctuation itself. Yeah. He surrendered.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor.
All right, there's another question by Amal. Is principle 3 of recreation essentially occasionalism? And if not, what is the difference?
The third, what was it? The third
He's
was the
he's
recreation.
asking if principle 3 which that is recreation, is it
Yes.
essentially occasionalism? And if it's not, what is it? What is the difference between
Yeah.
occasionalism and your third
What
principle?
is occasionalism? If you define occasionalism as being an event taking place on the occasion of property of conditions made available, yes, it is. You can construe such a conclusion. It is. But if you think that occasionalism is something that goes without having a law behind, because this is dangerous, by the way, in modern perspective, uh, we always think sometimes that when we say the will of God, we say God create, God exists. One of the basic reasons why many scientists do not believe in God, it is because they see that there is a law, and if God exists, there should be no law. That's what they think, but this is a big mistake they are committing. The universe, I believe, and even the Mutakallimun believed, is controlled by laws, and these laws of nature, not laws of physics. Laws of nature is controlling the universe. Our endeavor, our work should be to investigate the phenomena, the law of nature, and conclude the law of physics. And if the universe is legal, is controlled by laws, it is the Sunnatullah fil khalq. That is the Islamic image or presentation. It is Sunnatullah. And Sunnatullah is not arbitrary. Now, if you go to Orientalists and study details, they will tell you that Mu'tazilis were believing in secondary causes. And by secondary causes, they mean laws of physics. Secondary causes. And that is how it, or laws of nature even, it applies both ways in this case, because we are in a philosophical presentation of the laws. So laws of nature or laws of physics are secondary causes, while the one who is ordering these laws, initiating these laws effectively is the creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because a law of nature or physics cannot stand alone. It is a piece of symbols. F equal ma. F, the force, equal mass multiplied by acceleration. So what? Would the book now in front of me will go running, accelerating, or what? I'm only describing a motion of an accelerating particle by F equal ma, Newton law. But this law itself has a different expression, by the way. And here comes the laws of physics and laws of nature. In Einstein's theory, in Einstein's theory of general relativity, force and acceleration, etc., have different expressions mathematically and conceptually, not only mathematically. Conceptually, gravity in Newton's law is action at a distance, while in general relativity, Einstein's conception is curvature of space-time. Completely different concept. And here the laws of physics is one example, one major example, how laws of physics can change while laws of nature are the same, staying. Gravity is gravity. It stays from Newton to Einstein, but to explain it is different in two different ways. I hope I have answered, although maybe not, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see later. So, Hassan, do you want to unmute?
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Hassan. Actually, I'm a PhD student in physics. So I want to ask about little bit about your project related to recreation. You mentioned just now about that because I have read your book as well, Islam and Natural Philosophy,
Yes.
and I found that maybe you propose that this principle can explain some problems in physics, such as maybe macroscopic quantum, something like that. But I would like to know more about your current work, and I mean, like, what is the problem in this in this quantum, or maybe in physics in general, that are maybe most promising that we can solve from the recreation principle, or if we want to uh, maybe correlate or relate to uh, unification of theory, can we possibly make or construct from recreation principle? What's your thought about this?
Yes,
Okay.
well, actually, one thing I should point to when I work in physics and produce research, my research in physics, I don't introduce the philosophical background. I mean, I always start as a physicist, work as a physicist, although I am influenced by the philosophy of or the assumption of recreation. But if I want to prove anything, Hassan, I should go through the scientific and mathematical approach and the proper scientific approach without imposing any sort of I mean theological ideas or I mean my own philosophical ideas, although no physicist can escape, by the way, being influenced. Every physicist has been influenced. Einstein, Newton, all the physicists, Maxwell, were influenced by their background philosophy. And there are studies, vast studies about this subject. But as far as recreation, I take it as a physical assumption, pure physical assumption. Postulate number one, that the properties or the what I call observables of any physical system are under continuous change or recreation or reinstantiation. Some people do not like the word to hear the word recreation, I discovered. So I sometimes put it reinstantiation of the states. But although there is some kind of a difference between reinstantiation, very little difference, that is used in order not to confuse the people or the reader or the physicist. I have to follow the physical approach, the mathematical approach, 100% without any interference with, with the whether God has created or God exists or doesn't exist, something else. Yeah. I hope I mean, expressed what I mean and what is my real work now. I work on physical problems and I also sometimes work on Kalam questions. If you are satisfied with all that, I would apologize for asking you to, I mean, I will stop here because I also need to do some other works.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So anyway, yeah, thanks again for the opportunity. I mean, there were a few other questions, but for people who couldn't ask their questions, I posted the link to the WhatsApp group where you can find
Yes,
Professor
yes.
Basil, and
They
then he
are
will
free
answer
to
you.
send me WhatsApp or
Yeah, yeah. So if you can,
please
yeah,
send me
yeah, yeah. So,
email, WhatsApp.
yeah, yeah. So you can join the
I will
WhatsApp
be
group. I
happy
posted
to
the
answer
address. Yeah,
your questions, even if
yeah,
it is a lengthy, if it requires lengthy question, lengthy
yeah,
answer.
yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So just join our WhatsApp group, and then Professor AlTaie is there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, thank you all for coming, and jazakallah khair,
Thank
Professor
you.
AlTaie for the seminar, and
Thank
inshallah
you.
we'll see you soon all. Yeah. Okay. Barakallahu fikum. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,